r/NoStupidQuestions. A Sleep Village 9585 says, how come court judges get annoyed and make on-the-spot judgments based on someone's trivial actions during the courtroom? For example, when judges place a harsher punishment on someone because they smiled or because of the way they talk. Hell, changing the original punishment on its own already seems biased and petty, and referring to them as your honor when the people in question do not even know if he or she is honorable, or when you question their integrity. I'm just very curious, because it seems to me like they nitpick every little thing when it should be irrelevant. This question is mainly targeted towards Americans. I don't know how courtrooms are ran in other countries. Bogusismy name says, the opposite can happen also. But to answer your question, it's a perceived insult. Showing no respect for the court means you have no respect for the law. And that offends a lot of judges. You are in court on a serious matter, and it should be treated as such. Thifaxwoodingterrett says, in Honolulu, where I lived for a while, it was known that if you showed, dressed properly and were respectful of the judge, you'd likely get a lowered fine. My judge went one better and dismissed my case entirely because she said the officer was lazy in filling out the ticket. Sleep Wilderness says, I went to court to contest a traffic ticket once and got to watch a bunch of people go through before me. It was amazing. While everyone who was polite and contrite would get their tickets dismissed, there were still people who were argumentative and thought the judge would still throw out their tickets. Flactitum says, it's flawed and probably abused to some extent. But the judge's job is also to try and gauge the character of the accused to some extent and to make a guess about their chances of reoffending. A person who is polite and follows every instruction given is more likely to comply with a rule they broke in the future than someone who shouts over and dismisses everything said to them. A person who stands there crying, apologizing, and peeing themselves every time their actions are referenced is more likely to regret their actions and not do them again than someone who laughs manically. The justice system needs to give fair punishments, but also to be fair to the accused and consider the outcome to society as a whole. As long as it doesn't call the system into question, letting people who will go on to live good lives without reoffending out early is usually a good thing. It's just a messy part of the system that broadly does more good than harm. r/NoStupidQuestions. Iron Wolf 6464 says, has anyone else's perception of time been messed up since the pandemic? I feel like I had a pretty solid understanding of time before the pandemic hit. Ever since, it just seems like everything is blurred together into this bittersweet melancholy that seems to just shoot by before I can perceive it. I find it very difficult to go to sleep and wake up at regular time nowadays. I remember last October, like it was 3 months ago. Just seems like everything is completely warped now, and it's rushing by before I can take it all in. Aromatic Vanilla says, yeah man, totally get you. Everything's felt like a weird mix of fast and slow, like days blend into each other. 1 minute it's Monday, next it's 3 months later. Sleep schedules got messed up too, definition not the same rhythm anymore. Dragna3 says, sounds like getting older, with or without pandemic. Send me to these PLS says, I'm pretty sure it was like that even before the pandemic. Namora Traditor says, the pandemic really messed with a lot of people's sense of time. It's like the usual markers we used to have, work, events, social stuff just disappeared for a while, so everything feels like a blur. Best Mycologist 980 says, I have the same feeling. I recently discussed it with my friends and they have the same thing. I think it also depends on your age, because I missed almost 2 years of high school during the pandemic, and I still feel like that time was missing. Like I feel like I'm 18, not 20. I don't know how to explain it sometimes. Also, I want to research about the concept of the time, maybe it could be related to it. r/NoStupidQuestions. Chain says, why are pips common? In the US, it seems like performance improvement plans are common on the way to getting fired. Most of the US is at will employment and they can fire you for any non-protected reason, and you can quit for any reason. So why do ours and companies want to go through the motions of a pip? Amdali10 says, from my experience pips are 50/50. Usually about half the people who get put on one get their shit together and go on to perform well and stay with the company. The other half quit or get fired. They do work when used properly and the person wants to stay and put the work in. I once had a boss who put someone in a pip. It was rough. I finally asked my boss why the guy was still there and he told me I need to know that his failure isn't the result of my failure. That I'm not at fault for failing to provide the resources or the training or the attention that he needs to succeed. And that changed my perspective about how employees are to be treated. Reward if list says, legally they can fire you for any non-protected reason when there is no other protection in place. Company policies, established past practices, collective bargaining agreements, and other protections can often be in place. Plus, people can still sue for wrongful termination. Just because my employer officially states they fired me because I was late for work twice, I can still go to a lawyer and present a case that shows I was terminated because the new boss actually wanted to save money by getting rid of me and hiring someone else that would work for 1/2 the pay, or that they were upset I refused to go out with them. If I have a reasonable case with some evidence, then I can win this kind of case. Employers would rather go through the steps, even with an employee who they legitimately want to fire for cause. This avoids the trouble of courts and trials, the news and company reputation hit, the possible loss of a case, and the loss in stock prices or long-term contracts/customers. r/NoStupidQuestions. Unicorn says, can someone turn off the internet? I was watching Pantheon, and they shut down the internet, but is this possible, and how would this work? Okrika Spinach says, the internet is not centralized. You could never shut it all down. You could turn off important features, but those could be replaced. Big Thig Fist says, the internet is located in Big Ben and overseen by the elders of the internet. Don't drop it. Joel5 says, you could kidnap all the DNS keykeepers and force them to certify nonsense in the DNS tables. That would kill most of the internet, unless you remembered the IP address of the site you wanted to go to. Poverty Welder says, you could turn off segments of it. Ratfuss says, the answer is, sort of. You can't shut off the internet, but you can restrict access. On a government level, assuming they had the cooperation of the internet service providers, cut access to a city or even an entire country. DJ McCoss says, the whole original point of the technology that led to the internet was to build a communication system that could survive a nuclear war. Rerouting around blockages is built into it at a fundamental level, so you would pretty much have to destroy every computer in the world to shut the internet down. r/NoStupidQuestions. The Lego Furry says, back in Roman times, do you think there were Pompei jokes like how we have 911 jokes? Nan123 says, I messed up. The emperor at the time was Titus, not Trajan. Yes, there were almost certainly at least a few. We've found a letter from Domitian, brother of Trajan who was emperor at the time, to another patrician, where he threatens to destroy you like the mountain destroyed Pompeii, if he didn't back off from a woman they both were pursuing. He wrote it less than a year after the eruption. Combined with what we know of the Roman sense of humor from surviving texts and graffiti, I can't imagine there weren't some people making those jokes. Maybe not in polite company or formal settings, but yeah. I've also heard a theater in Rome performed a satirical play about the eruption, but I can't remember the name of it or any sources. To be fair, I didn't have much to search on. Play about Pompeii brings up a bunch of modern productions in Google. Supposedly it was really popular before it was shut down, but that may be a myth. The Lego Furry says, okay, thanks for such a detailed response. That's amazing with the letter lol. ReviewOc 929 says, absolutely, Roman graffiti was pretty brutal. Live, laugh, lava. The Lego Furry says, I guess the jokes really erupted then. Prudent Research 251 says, magma can't melt marble beams. Adonis Zero says, technology has advanced a lot quicker than evolution happens. So once you get over the culture shock perspective issues of how do you live life without tech, anything a modern human does or would do was done back in the day. Some wacky examples: some nobles locked themselves away in a room for a week or two to finish the latest book published by their favorite author, then be found sobbing for days because a fictional character died. Binge watching shows parallel. Some nobles would buy the author, and they had a pet author, so they got their favorite story chapter by chapter instead of waiting for release. Webnovel parallel, and sometimes even got them to rewrite books to have the ending they wanted. Fanfiction parallel, they'd commission unflattering paintings of their friends and enemies. Many instances of thing jokes are found in graffiti. Other equivalents of initials in a heart are inscribed around the place. Many scribes would graffiti the margins of their master copies with complaints about the text and their job. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.